I nodded. But words failed me. I'm scared, I admitted. He stepped in until there was nothing left between us. If I kiss you, he whispered, you'll know. I didn't move. Didn't flinch. Didn't breathe. Because some moments aren't meant to be questioned. Some truths aren't meant to be delayed. And some people, you don't expect to change your life until they already have. He leaned in, and this time, I didn't stop him. Because in a world full of silence, he was the only sound I wanted to hear. He kissed me. Not urgently. Not recklessly. But carefully. Like it was a language he had waited his whole life to speak. And like I was the only one meant to understand it. His hand stayed on the back of my neck, guiding me slowly as our lips met. My hands, unsure of where to go, finally settled on his waist, tense, warm, real. The moment didn't rush. We weren't trying to escape something. We were arriving. I had spent years pretending. Years convincing myself that I had chosen the right life. That comfort meant happiness. That silence was peace. But in that moment, my mouth pressed to his body trembling slightly against mine, I realized I had only ever been surviving. This was the first time I was truly living. We broke the kiss slowly, our foreheads resting against each other. Ethan didn't smile. He just whispered, I was so scared you'd push me away. I shook my head. I was scared I wouldn't. He exhaled like he'd been holding that breath for days. I've never done this before, I said. He nodded, brushing his thumb over my cheek. You're doing fine. We sat down on the cold garage floor, backs against the workbench, knees touching. I don't want this to be a mistake, I said after a long pause. He looked at me, more serious than I'd ever seen him. It's not. A mistake is when you hurt someone for the wrong reasons. This is the first time either of us chose ourselves. I'm married, I whispered, shame laced in every syllable. And you're also unhappy, he replied. You can love someone and still outgrow what you had. That doesn't make you a villain. It makes you honest. I've never told anyone how empty I've felt, I admitted. He reached for my hand again. You didn't have to. I saw it. I looked down at our fingers interlaced. It feels wrong. But it doesn't feel fake, he replied. We sat in silence. But it wasn't cold anymore. It wasn't awkward. It was full of everything neither of us had ever been allowed to say out loud. You're dangerous, I finally said. He raised an eyebrow. Why? Because now I know what it's like to be touched by someone who actually sees me. He leaned his head on my shoulder. Then let it be dangerous. We stayed like that for a while, just holding on, just breathing. Then, too soon, the silence broke. From outside the garage, we heard the creak of the back door. Footsteps. A voice, soft, female, sleepy. Aaron? Are you out here? My wife. We both froze. She called my name again. This time, closer. I stood up fast, heart slamming in my chest. Ethan backed into the shadows behind the tool shelf, his eyes wide but calm. I opened the garage door, stepping halfway out into the cool night air. She was standing there, robe pulled tight, rubbing sleep from her eyes. I woke up. You weren't in bed. I forced a small smile. Just couldn't sleep. Needed some air. She yawned. Come back inside. It's cold. I nodded. Be right there. She turned and walked back toward the house. I stood there for a moment longer. Frozen between two lives. Behind me, a spark I never thought I'd feel again. In front of me, the life I promised, the comfort I committed to, the silence I learned to survive inside. When I finally closed the garage door, Ethan was still there. He didn't ask what I was going to do. He didn't have to. He just looked at me and said, whatever you decide, just don't lie to yourself again. I kissed him knowing the consequences, and walked away carrying the truth I could no longer bury. The danger wasn't what we did. It was realizing I might need it more than anything else I've ever known. We left the next morning. My wife packed her bag, humming softly in the background, completely unaware that while she slept, something inside me had shifted. I didn't see Ethan during breakfast. He stayed upstairs. Or maybe he just didn't want to say goodbye. Or maybe he knew I wasn't ready to hear it. The car ride home was quiet. Not tense, just normal. Too normal. Like nothing had happened. Like I wasn't carrying the weight of something I couldn't explain. She held my hand on the gear shift halfway through the drive. I let her. But my fingers didn't tighten. Not because I didn't care. But because I couldn't pretend anymore. That night, after unpacking, I found something in my coat pocket. A folded piece of paper. My heart stopped before I even opened it. Ethan's handwriting. Simple. Sharp. Familiar. You don't have to choose me. But you owe it to yourself to choose the truth. If you ever stop pretending, you'll know where to find me. I sat on the edge of our bed for a long time that night. My wife was brushing her teeth in the bathroom. Humming again. A habit. A song she didn't even realize she was singing. She didn't ask what was wrong. She never really did anymore. And that? That was the part that hurt most. She hadn't noticed that the man sitting right in front of her hadn't been there for years. The days that followed felt hollow. I went to work, ate dinner, laughed at all the right places. But something had changed. I started noticing the silence between us. The absence of warmth. The way we slept back to back. And every time I passed by my jacket hanging near the door, I remembered the note in the pocket. And how it felt to be wanted. Seen. Touched like I mattered. 2 weeks later, I asked her if she was happy. She laughed a little, caught off guard. Of course. Why? I looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time in years, I realized we were both lying. Are you happy with me? I asked again. She stared at me. Then her face fell, just slightly. I don't know, she said quietly. Are you? I didn't answer. We both already knew. We didn't fight. There was no dramatic ending. Just two people finally being honest enough to admit they had stopped choosing each other a long time ago. I haven't seen Ethan since. Not yet. But I kept the note. And every night when I walk past the coat rack, I slip my hand into that pocket. Just to feel it. Just to remind myself that it was real. That I was real, once. That even if it was brief, someone looked at me and didn't look away. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if I'll ever knock on his door. But I know this. I stopped lying to myself. And for the first time in a long time. That feels like enough. Have you ever stayed in something just because it felt safer than being honest? Tell me in the comments, because maybe your truth needs to be heard too. But I didn't. I stopped. And I stepped inside. Ethan was sitting up in bed, knees pulled to his chest, bathed in the soft blue light from the phone screen in his hand. He looked up, like he'd been waiting. He didn't smile. He just said, "You came." I nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak. He scooted over without saying anything, patting the spot beside him. I sat down. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't awkward, it was thick. Heavy. Electric. Finally, he broke it. You ever wonder what it'd feel like to be wanted just because you're you? I looked at him. All the time, I said. He nodded slowly. Same. He reached out again, not rushing, not grabbing, just gently offering. And I took his hand. This time, it wasn't testing. It wasn't suggestion. It was confirmation. Our fingers wove together like they were meant to. Like they'd done this before in another life. We lay down side by side on the bed, still holding hands. He turned his head to face me. I'm not trying to ruin your life, he said. I think maybe I'm part of the version of you that feels alive. You shouldn't be, I whispered. But maybe you are. His thumb traced the top of my knuckles. My throat tightened. He stared at the ceiling. Sometimes I watch you with her, and I wonder how someone can look so empty. I blinked hard. I used to love her. I still do. Just not in the way I'm supposed to. He nodded. You don't have to explain it to me. We didn't kiss. We didn't undress. We just lay there. Quiet. Breathing the same rhythm. For a while, I didn't feel like a husband. Or an uncle. Or a man who'd made the biggest mistake of his life. I just felt like someone who had finally found a place to rest. His hand squeezed mine once, slow, steady. I don't want this night to end, he said. I looked at him. Maybe it doesn't have to. And then he turned onto his side, curled into me, and rested his head against my shoulder. His hand stayed on my chest. I let it stay there. Let him stay there. And in that moment, I didn't care about right or wrong, past or future. I only knew one thing. That being seen, being wanted, being touched like that. It reminded me I was still alive. He held me like he'd known me for years, and I held him back like I was afraid the morning would take him away. When I woke up, he was already gone. The spot beside me on the bed was cold. The pillow untouched. Like it had never happened. I sat up slowly, eyes adjusting to the light slipping through the blinds. My pulse was still racing. My shirt still smelled like him. My chest still ached from the weight of everything I didn't understand. I hadn't meant to fall asleep there. And yet I had. Wrapped in his warmth, hand in hand, in a house full of people who would destroy both of us if they knew. I stood quietly and crept back into my room. My wife was still asleep. Same position. Same soft breathing. Nothing had changed. Except me. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror and stared at myself. What kind of man does this? What kind of husband? But guilt wasn't the loudest thing in the room that morning. It was absence. The kind that crept under your skin when someone touches your soul and then disappears like it never happened. Ethan didn't speak to me all day. Not once. He stayed with his cousins. Ate lunch at the far end of the table. Laughed at stories I didn't hear. Avoided my eyes like they held something too dangerous to look at. And maybe they did. I tried to tell myself it was for the best. That last night was a mistake. That it ending silently made it easier. But it didn't. It made it worse. That night, I lingered on the porch after dinner, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. Just to know he still saw me. Still felt something. But he never came out. The stars came out. The wind picked up. The house grew quiet. And still, no sign of him. When I finally walked back to my room, something was resting on the floor just outside the door. Folded paper. A note. I picked it up slowly. 5 words, written in small, careful handwriting. You didn't tell me no. That was all. But it said everything. I sat down on the edge of the bed, that note in my hand, heart pounding against my ribs. He was right. I hadn't stopped him. I hadn't said no. Because I didn't want to. Because I wanted more. And now that I'd had a taste of what it felt like to be seen, held, understood, I didn't know how to go back to pretending again. But pretending is all I knew. So I folded the note back up, tucked it into my wallet like something precious and dangerous, and lay back in bed. My wife rolled toward me in her sleep. She reached out. Her hand touched mine. But it didn't feel the same. Not anymore. I told myself it was over. That one night didn't mean anything. But my skin still remembered his hands, and my heart still answered to his name. The next evening, I found him in the garage. The door was halfway open. The warm glow from a single bulb lit the space just enough to outline his frame, leaning forward on the old workbench, his head hanging between his shoulders like the weight of something invisible was pressing down on him. I stood in the doorway for a moment, uncertain whether I should say anything. He didn't turn. He didn't acknowledge me. But his voice came out low, tight. You read the note? Yes, I said. He was still facing away. Then why are you here? I didn't answer right away. I stepped inside. Each footstep on the concrete echoed louder than the last. I don't know, I said truthfully. But I haven't stopped thinking about you. He turned slowly, arms still folded across his chest, eyes guarded. You didn't say anything, he said. You just left. I had to, I replied. Everything about that night scared me. Why? He asked. Because it was wrong, or because it was real? That hit me harder than I expected. I don't have an answer to that, I said. All I know is, you looked at me like I wasn't invisible. And I haven't felt that in a long time. He stepped closer. I don't look at people unless I mean it, he said. And I meant it. Every second of it. He stopped just in front of me, close enough to feel the heat off his skin. Then why didn't you come back? He asked. Because I didn't know how to live with it afterward, I whispered. His gaze softened. I didn't expect you to run. I just thought, you'd come find me when you were ready. I didn't run, I said. I just froze. I've been frozen for years. He reached forward slowly, like he was giving me time to pull away, and placed my hand against his chest. Do you feel that? He asked. His heartbeat pounded under my palm. Wild. Alive. Real. So is mine, I whispered. His voice cracked slightly. This is the only time I feel seen. I looked into his eyes. Me too. The garage faded away. The world shrank down to just the space between us. I know I'm not supposed to feel this, I said. But I do. I can't stop it. You don't have to stop it, he said gently. You just have to stop pretending it isn't there. His hand came up to rest on my neck, thumb brushing the edge of my jaw. I know what this is, he said. Do you? It was 2:11 in the morning when I heard the knock. Soft. Hesitant. I sat up in bed, heart beating faster, careful not to wake my wife lying beside me. The hallway light glowed faintly beneath the door. Then came the whisper, so quiet I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Uncle, you awake? I froze. It was Ethan. Her nephew. 20 years old. Barefoot. Shirtless. And standing outside my room like he'd forgotten what family boundaries meant. I opened the door just a crack. He stood there, eyes tired but locked on mine. I can't sleep, he said. Can I come in? I hesitated. Everything in me said no. Everything in me also remembered the way he looked at me over dinner that night. The way he smiled too long. The way his hand brushed mine when he passed the salad bowl. The way his gaze lingered just a little too low when I took off my sweater. I opened the door. He stepped inside. The door clicked shut behind him. And in the dim silence of the guest room, he looked me in the eyes and whispered 5 words that hit harder than anything I've ever heard. Don't pretend you don't feel it. While my wife slept down the hall, her nephew stepped into my room, and nothing would ever be the same again. My name is Aaron. I'm 32. Married. Stable. Quiet. I have a good job, a good house, and a good wife. At least, that's how it looks on paper. Behind closed doors, our marriage is tired. No real fights, but no warmth either. Just routines. 2 people in the same house, in the same bed, but worlds apart. We don't touch anymore. We don't talk. We just exist. That weekend, we drove out to her parents' home, deep in the countryside, big house, lots of bedrooms, too many relatives. I didn't want to go. But she insisted. Said it would be good for us. It wasn't. The moment we arrived, she disappeared into the world of her sisters and cousins. I became a shadow, forgotten at the edge of family conversations. And then, there was Ethan. Her nephew. 20 years old. Home from college for summer break. All charm and curiosity, with just enough edge to make people wonder about him. He called me Uncle Aaron, but there was something in the way he said it. Playful. Knowing. The first night, he offered to help me clean up after dinner. No one else bothered. You don't really fit in here, do you? He said. I looked at him. What makes you say that? He shrugged. You watch more than you speak. That's usually a sign. He was right. And from that moment on, he was everywhere. Sitting near me during breakfast. Asking me what music I liked. Catching me alone by the porch and asking questions no nephew should ask his uncle. Are you happy? He asked one afternoon. Of course, I said too quickly. He smiled. That's not what your eyes say. Later that day, I caught myself watching him from across the yard, shirtless, tossing a football with his cousins, laughter easy, body golden in the summer sun. I looked away the moment he caught me staring. He didn't look away. That night, as we all settled into our rooms, I found myself wide awake. My wife had already rolled over, back turned. Breathing slow. Deep. Asleep. I lay there in the dark, heart restless, brain louder than the silence in the room. That's when the knock came. Soft. Measured. And then, the whisper. Uncle, you awake? I got up. Opened the door. And there he was. Eyes burning. Lips parted. Shirtless in nothing but drawstring pants. I can't sleep, he said. And before I could say anything, he stepped inside. There are moments in life where you know, before it happens, that you're about to make a choice you can never undo. This was mine. And I didn't stop him. He didn't say anything after he stepped into the room. He just looked around slowly, eyes grazing over the nightstand, the window, the side of the bed I was no longer sleeping in. Then he turned to face me. You're not going to make me leave? He asked. I should have. I should have told him this was wrong, that he was crossing a line he couldn't uncross. That I was married. That I was his aunt's husband. But I didn't say anything. I just stood there, my pulse pounding in my ears. He stepped closer. I couldn't sleep, he said again, softer this time. I kept thinking about how you looked at me earlier. Like you wanted to look longer, but didn't let yourself. I swallowed hard. You're my wife's nephew. And you're not happy, he replied without flinching. I stared at him, stunned. He moved past me and sat on the edge of the bed. I won't do anything unless you want me to, he said, looking straight ahead. But don't lie to yourself. The room felt heavier by the second. The air thick with everything neither of us should have been feeling. I sat down across from him, leaving space between us. What are you doing, Ethan? I asked quietly. He looked at me. Letting you feel something real. I couldn't think. My chest was tight. My palms were damp. I hadn't felt this awake in years. And yet, part of me still clung to the rules. You're 20. He smiled. I'm legal, and I'm not stupid. I know what I want. He leaned back, arms behind him, gaze locked on mine. I saw the way you looked at me. Not just today. Since the moment we got here. I wasn't. You were, he said gently. And it's okay. Silence fell between us. My fingers curled against my thigh. Then I felt it, his hand brushing against mine. Slow. Testing. I didn't move. He shifted closer, just a little. Touch me, he whispered. Just once. If you hate it, I'll leave. I hesitated. Then I reached. Not boldly. Not hungrily. Just, honestly. Our fingers touched. Locked. And that tiny, simple contact sent a shock through me I wasn't ready for. It was like my body had been asleep for years and someone finally turned the power back on. We didn't kiss. We didn't speak. We just sat there, holding hands in the dark. I closed my eyes, feeling his skin against mine, the weight of his presence, the impossible reality of what was happening. And I hated how right it felt. How warm. How needed. Eventually, he stood up. Your wife's still asleep, he said. You still have time to decide. He walked toward the door. Paused. Turned back. If you want more? I'll leave the door open tonight. And just like that, he was gone. Leaving behind a silence that felt louder than any scream. I sat in the dark for hours, hands still tingling from where he touched me, asking myself if I was already too far gone to pretend I wasn't. I couldn't sleep. Even with my wife lying inches away from me, breathing softly, completely unaware, I couldn't close my eyes. Not after what Ethan said. Not after the way his fingers felt wrapped around mine. The house was silent, but my thoughts weren't. They spun. Around what I'd done. What I hadn't done. And what I still wanted to do. Around 3:07 a.m., I got out of bed. I didn't plan where I was going. My body moved before my brain did. Quiet steps down the hallway, each one echoing louder in my head than they did on the hardwood. When I passed his door, it was open. Not all the way. Just enough to say I meant what I said. I could have kept walking. I should have.